that they show us where they are so that they can access their lawyers.
The legislators want the only hospital in Kasese opened, as evidence indicates that it has been closed since the weekend. John Baptist Imokola, Sam Ibana Mugabi.
Another prominent Ugandan and human rights advocate, Winnie Byanyima, has also castigated the government over the Kasese killings. Byanyima, who is an executive director of Oxfam International, called for more responsive legislation to defend the rights of minorities. Byanyima, who is also the wife of Uganda's opposition leader Kizza Besigye, sat down with our reporter Sharon Momanyi for an exclusive interview on the sidelines of the ongoing high-level meeting here in Nairobi.
Thank you very much for making the time to speak to us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
So maybe we can start by talking about the high-level meeting that we've been having here in Nairobi, and what has been your agenda and your area of focus as Oxfam at that high-level meeting that speaks about, international development and cooperation in development.
This is a very important meeting. That's why I'm here leading an Oxfam delegation, because development cooperation, as we have known it, is currently being diluted, both in terms of quantity and in terms of quality. And this is bad. It's bad for the world. It's bad for international solidarity. It's bad for human rights. It's bad for peace and security of our world. So we're here to call for development cooperation that serves its true purposes, which are to fight and eliminate poverty in the developing countries. But what we are seeing today is that rich countries are sitting alone in the OECD, in the club of rich countries, and are redefining development cooperation. They are diverting more and more of it towards supporting their own private sector instead of supporting the local private sector and creating jobs in poor countries. They're using more and more of it to stop people from fleeing persecution and wars. We are here to suggest very strongly that development cooperation should, first of all, we should keep the quantity, keep the purpose, and use it strategically to help poor countries gain sovereignty over their own development process. That means strengthening their ownership of development, closing the gap in their budgets so that they are fully independent in financing their development. So this means supporting tax justice, supporting developing countries to raise the domestic resources they need. That means tackling this huge problem of tax dodging by big companies and wealthy individuals. So aid should be used for that purpose. Right now, too little of it is being used for supporting this tax agenda. We are saying use it for that purpose. We are also saying use it to strengthen the citizen-state compact, strengthen citizens' capacity to claim their rights, to oversee how governments spend, and use it also to strengthen government's capacity to deliver services. That's their role. So those are some of the issues we are fighting on. The other one's about women.
And maybe before we talk about women, because I know we'd want to dwell around that for a bit.
Yeah.
You talk about a dilution of both the quality and quantity of development cooperation. And just from an international relations perspective, some of the things that dilute this quality are, varying degrees of national interest. What is the global, perhaps first the political will to have this kind of different levels of engagement and cooperation, and then how do countries then overcome that little thing called national interest for cooperation?
Okay, first of all, this development cooperation is part of international solidarity and international cooperation in order to have a safer, more just, more peaceful world. because we know that problems don't remain within borders.
Right.
When you have extreme levels of inequality, poverty that is biting and deep, the problems that ensue don't stay within borders. They hurt everybody. Epidemics flow across borders. Crime, organized crime flows across borders. Refugees, when there's conflict, flow across borders. So, development cooperation is part of the project of stabilizing the world. But what is unfortunate is that they are not even here, the rich countries. And Oxfam is very upset about that. It's a global meeting. It's a very important meeting, but they have downgraded it. Only about 3 of the rich countries are here at ministerial level. The rest have sent really middle level, junior level staff to represent them. This is not right. It shows that they are lacking commitment to this very important instrument for global development. What we are seeing is that, on the other hand, within the OECD, the rich man's club, they are going ahead to change the rules of development cooperation unilaterally, because that's a rich club, OECD. Developing countries don't sit there. So there they are participating, changing the rules unilaterally. That's not accountability. One principle of development cooperation is this mutual accountability. They are already violating it by not coming here to sit on the platform and discuss at senior level and agree how to take this development cooperation forward.
Right. So the other side of that conversation has been then this movement, the Pan-African movement, you know, the famous African solutions to African problems. And maybe how can you audit that kind of a movement in the sense of regional blocks, you know, doing enough to find our own economic muscle? Should it be, you know, promoting ease of doing business, perhaps taxes where they're concerned? Are we doing enough to like promote our own African market, our own economies as a bloc, as an African bloc?
Of course, African countries have a lot they can do on their own that will take forward the continent. This meeting is about cooperation between, global cooperation between rich and poor countries. But it would help very much if African countries, for example, were coming together and taking a very firm stand against, for example, harmful tax competition. This is a result of a global tax system that is flawed, that is archaic, but Africans on their own can put a bar, a minimum bar, on how low they will not go in terms of taxation, so that global companies cannot play them and put them in a race to the bottom on taxation. That's something they can do. Oxfam has been working with ECOWAS to develop a mining code. That's the purpose of that countries of the ECOWAS region can stand firm together and say we won't be pushed lower than this. So any company, whether it goes to Guinea or it goes to Niger or it goes to Cameroon or wherever, will find that the bar has been set and it must not be able to play them and cheat them on what is fair taxation. So there's a lot that African countries can do on their own, but they also need this platform for collaboration with the richer countries, because some of these issues you cannot resolve without global solutions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're globally renowned as a champion for women's and girls' rights. And I believe that's also one of the aspects that, you know, Oxfam also stands for. What kind of opportunity did this high-level meeting offer to discuss about the place of women and girls?
Yes, on Thursday, I'm going to moderate a session here that is concerning women's economic empowerment. For us, as Oxfam, you cannot have any success in eradicating poverty unless you put women at the center of it. The evidence is there, it's very strong about the benefits that societies, that families, that communities, that societies gain when a woman is empowered with knowledge, empowered with information, and empowered with economic opportunity. So we believe that development cooperation must be based on gender equality and gender justice. So we come here also to make that a very important issue of development cooperation. That's also part of the quality. A development cooperation that does not place women's rights at its center is not qualitative and will not achieve its purpose of eradicating poverty.
And just looking around our neighbors, Uganda, Rwanda, we've made milestones with regards to female representations on the political sphere. What are some of the steps or frameworks that made this possible for Uganda?
The gains that women can make are part of national struggles for democracy, for human rights. So every country has its trajectory and will find its opportunity for making big strides. We were able to make a big strides on women's rights emerging from conflict. Conflict is bad. It hurts many people. People die. Property is destroyed. But often it also creates opportunity. It creates a gap for recreating, for building something new. And that opportunity, often women have been able to seize it and make big leaps in their rights. Now, that's not so for Kenya, who has been a very stable country. And that's been good for you and for all of us. When we're having instability, we used to run here. I ran here at least 2 times. But that stability also means that change here is more gradual.
Right.
So while we're able to move and legislate, put in the constitution quotas for women, Kenya hasn't been able to get that quickly. You've had a long struggle, and your strong women have fought, and finally it's there in your constitution, in your new constitution,
Yes.
And you're having challenges of its implementation. But I have no doubt that in a few years' time you will implement it, because history is on your side, on the side of the just.
Right.
So it will happen, and you have the support of women in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, where the quotas exist in the constitutions. You have that momentum of being part of East Africa. So it's going to come. And the men who are resisting it, my advice to them is get on the right side of history.
All right, and even just talking about the emancipation of women's leadership in the continent, let's talk about that. And should women bring a different perspective to politics and generally to leadership? Should it come with a different touch, or are we just competing on the same level? Is there a different touch to the different genders' leadership?
There is evidence to show that when women come into politics, that they do carry the same but also different agendas. There's a lot of evidence to show that parliaments that have more women, you have women bringing up issues of children's rights, rights of the family, concerns of women's health, and so on. So it's true, at least the evidence supports it, that women often come into decision making and bring different agendas, issues that have not been given importance or have been invisible.
Fantastic. Now I'd like to talk about state of affairs back at home in Uganda. And it's unfortunate that we've seen the kind of killings going on in Kasese. Now let's just go back a few decades ago, and you're part of a vision that saw, NRM come to power. What do you feel? What is your audit of the governance at this point? And even as being part of the vision from the start and being part of the leadership for a very long time, what is your feeling with regards to the state of affairs in Uganda, and at this moment being as bad as we see them from here?
Well, what has happened in Kasese, in Western Uganda, is shocking. What we are sure of is that right now is that more than 60 people were killed. And it's very important that there is an inquiry, an independent inquiry, investigation in the cause of this shocking and brutal loss of life. We need to know, the world, Ugandans need to know, their families need to know who did this, and those who did it should be brought to justice. It's very important that also we get to the real causes, because this problem has been simmering for a long time. The people of Kasese have continuously voted against the NRM government. They have grievances that need to be looked into.